Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Civil Point Podcast. I am none other than your host, Ariana Dieva, in the flesh, and we are back to talk about the craziness that continues to unravel and the insanity and the complete vile nature that continues to be perpetrated and doled out in the uncovering of the Epstein documents. But before we get into what we want to talk to and talk about today, if you guys haven't already, you guys can go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss out on brand new content from the Civil Point Podcast right here on YouTube. And you can follow all my other links right up here. But as you all know, YouTube is my predominant platform, and any new content comes straight to YouTube first. So let's get into it today because I want to talk about the abusive nature that these victims were subjected to by powerful individuals when it comes to this whole center of the Epstein files and the sex trafficking and abuse of women and minor boys and girls that happened under the guidance and eye of these powerful men who took advantage of these young girls. And it is just, when you keep going through the files, and when you keep uncovering, and when you keep seeing these posts of the allegations that happened, it continues to really get at you is this reality? Because some of the allegations are so absurd that you can't make them up. They're so specific that you can't truly just think, oh my God, this person is just looking for an opportunity for a money grab. Because it's traumatizing, it's specific. And we're going to get into all of that today. But before we get into that today, I do want to go ahead and get into our social media influencers, because I want to talk about how the Republicans continue to platform criminals and use them to perpetuate this idea that criminality is somehow how men are supposed to be. You're supposed to commit criminal acts against human beings to be supported in the Republican Party. So one person I want to discuss today is none other than this man. And apparently now he's political and he is a streamer. So let's go ahead and get into it. Why aren't we moving? There we go. I just had to actually click it. Cool. So, this is, 1 minute. Let me make sure I have this up here. Everything is now up. Oh, nope. Pressed the wrong thing here. Okay, here we go. So this is, I hate saying the name, Clavicular. And basically, Clavicular is a streamer on Kick. And the only reason why we know who he is right now currently is because he has a high-profile incident of him running down another human being on his live stream. That's the only reason why this man has some sort of surge of notoriety in our public hemisphere, and why we're being forced to digest this person, and why he's being socialized and monopolized through our social ecosystem currently. So basically, all of his public attention is only because he ran over someone. He almost killed someone. He literally committed vehicular destruction on another human being. So the only reasons currently why he is in this public hemisphere and being purported out to everyone is because A, his appearance. He is a conventionally good-looking white man. And he just continues to have shock value instead of accountability and substance. And this is the perfect recipe for none other than, guess what? The Republican Party. Let's platform criminals. And it doesn't matter if they're a criminal, if they can look the part or galvanize an audience with their personality, then guess what? They're for us. It doesn't matter if they're a criminal. But let's watch this video from Clavicular and how he talks about politics now and how he talks about J.D. Vance. So let's go into it.
Yeah, but I mean, like this next election cycle, who's going to win? It's going to be Gavin Newsom against J.D. Vance because J.D. Vance is subhuman and Gavin Newsom bugs.
J.D. Vance is subhuman?
Yeah.
What makes you say that?
He's got a very short total facial width to height ratio. He's obese, very recessed side profile, whereas Newsom is like 6'3" Chad.
So JD's very tall. JD's got to be.
Well, still,
6'3".
Gavin Newsom obviously mugs him to death.
So you're a Newsom head. You prefer Newsom to the vice president?
I'm just telling you who's going to win.
Do you prefer him though?
Honestly, it's hard to say, but Newsom being that much more of a mogger and like having a president who's like fat and especially that young.
You think he's fat? I don't think he's fat.
I would say
he's a bigger guy for sure.
It's just embarrassing. Like, how are you fat and you expect to like lead a country? You can't even be in shape, you know?
How are you fat and you expect to lead a country when you can't even be in shape yourself? You know what? Why wasn't this the slogan? Why wasn't Republicans touting this when Donald Trump was running for president? Because Donald Trump is fat, okay? And he's currently not running the country in the best direction. He's running it into the ground like the slob he is. So on that note, I kind of agree. But this is the problem here. And this is why our generation is so cooked. He literally stated that he would only vote for Gavin Newsom against none other than J.D. Vance. Not because of policy, but because he views a potential Republican nominee as physically inferior. Doesn't matter about politics. It matters about the vanity of it all for someone like Clavicular, who has no obvious political affiliation or intention or thought processes or investigative processes to develop his own opinions. He can only look on the surface of vanity. So for him to sit here and be like, I'm going to vote for Gavin Newsom off of vanity, okay, good, that works in Democrats' favor, but like I would like people to have a little bit of thought process and understanding as to why you should vote for someone like Gavin Newsom if he becomes a Democratic nominee versus J.D. Vance and his deplorable stances on so many different issues in America, such as immigration, such as food availability, such as housing crisis, such as his racism that continues to perpetuate through our society currently. So it's just, again, there's no political reason behind it. It's literal just Instagram logic, and it's being applied to democracy. And that's another thing that will ruin democracy. These young minds that are sitting here trying to create vanity over democracy and make choices of vanity over complete, understanding what our political policies and our environment currently is. It reduces politics to the looks, to body shaming, and to literal dominance narratives that have no availability to help Americans. So in reflection of this, it's literal just cultural critiques here, because it's more so about algorithmic validation rather than actual public policy, and it continues to infiltrate our culture. And even though Clavicular voting for Gavin Newsom will be good in regards to like Democratic swings, this man has no business being on a podcast talking about politics. He has no idea what he's talking about. The fact that he's sitting here saying "mogger" on a podcast and he has no actual discernment in what truly exists and what truly will help human beings, it's because he does not care. Look at that man's eyes. That man literally almost committed murder. And he sat there saying, well, that man deserved to be run over. So again, why are we elevating people for notoriety rather than insight? Especially the Republican Party. Like, it's insane that criminals can be popularized in the Republican Party with no accountability. It's like, how did murder adjacent controversy become a career accelerator? It makes no absolute sense to me. It's insane to think that these people continue to thrive. And it's scary. It's like, where's the common sense behind it all? But again, it's very on brand for the right. It's very on brand for the Republican Party to have someone like Clavicular stand on the opposite side and purport them out to be some, messiah. Oh my God, you're a criminal. So it's very on brand for the Republican Party, because the Republican Party likes to platform criminals. Whether he's aesthetically or personally marketable, they will platform a criminal. And it's insane to me. So it's just weird that the right continuously, repeatedly platforms these people and figures who just are disqualified morally from talking about politics. Someone answer that question for me. Why does the right continue to market people who are disqualified from morality? It's weird. It is weird. They literally market shock value and aesthetics over actual personability and actual politics and morality. And it's a pattern for these people. So we're going to go ahead and continue on here, because I do want to turn to some of these Epstein documents. And they continue to become more vile, more sick. They continue to show, one second here, let me pop this up. The Epstein files continued to become more vile, more sick, more atrocious, more unbearable, more undigestible as people continue to run through them, to comb through them, to read what actually is alleged in these documents. And it becomes more of an alignment that these allegations are true and happened. So I want to turn to this document here. So this is a Federal Bureau of Investigation intake form. As you can see, it has a case ID number, and these are allegations against Donald Trump. So this one actually is allegations against Prince Andrew. And I find it funny how Prince Andrew's name is not redacted. But what we'll get into later is that Trump's name is being redacted from documents that have already been given to us from the government. So we'll get into that later. But I want to read this because this becomes so sick and so just ugh. Because some allegations are so specific, so traumatic, so consistent that they become credible precisely by how traumatic they are. When you have these traumatic experiences and you're recounting them, it becomes very hard to ignore and push it off as, oh, that could never happen. No, it's not like these allegations become convenient and they're vague. No, they're very specific. They're very individualized and they're very traumatic. So the vague accusations, they don't exist. These are documented intricate allegations of a sequence of events that these victims went through. And this is why it's so hard to discount the recounts of these situations and abuses to these victims who suffered traumatic behavior. So let's get into this. So let me make sure we have this up here. So this is a Federal Bureau of Investigation intake form, and we're going to go to this section, the submitted text here. So this was an allegation from one of the victims. When I was 6 to 8 years old, living at Redacted in Surrey, United Kingdom, I was drugged at night and driven by my father to a PDF ring parties. The main house I was taken to is located behind the Thorpe Green at the end of a private road. Hurst Farm Lively Stables is next door. In the driveway of this house, I was hit by a dark blue car with a personalized license plate ending in Redacted, driven by Prince Andrew. I was not taken to a hospital, but I suffered permanent injuries to my ribs, hips, and leg on my right side. The car's hood figurine broke off in my hand on impact, and I later buried it near my home so it could still be recovered as evidence. After I was hit by the car, I woke up to Prince Andrew, Redacted, in that house. I was also redacted. I have medical records of the resulting infection. You can only assume abuse of a, sexual nature happened. I once ran away naked from the house and made it to the Irish Traveller community down the road. I remember seeing and speaking to a man. So I think there may be Irish travelers living in the area who could corroborate what goes on there. Yeah. Crazy. And we'll get into the rest of this real quick, but I wanted to stick on this here because these intake forms become and shows the atrocities that these victims continuously were subjected to. If we take a look at the key points of this intake form, the FBI intake document references explicit threats to the alleged victim's life. It's not vague. It's not like I was here on this day, but I don't remember this, that, and the third that happened to me. No, it is specific events that chronologically happened. And this victim who was hit by a car and then sexually assaulted by Prince Andrew recounted these, and the allegations include being drugged by her own parent, being transported to organized abuse settings, as well as being struck by a car with a personalized license plate. I think that is so specific and can be corroborated because what victim is going to lie about remembering partial license plates? And this is why I say the allegations become possible instead of unbelievable because they are so specific. And I just want to note this, trauma experts also note that fragmented and vivid details are common. And when you're recounting them, they become more clear in the head, and it could become like a migraine. It could be oh, this happened, and it's so traumatic, and it's hurting your brain. So those details don't read as fabricated to me. But I just want to ask a few questions here, because why would someone, and yes, we do understand that people do lie about situations, but why would someone fabricate such a grotesque, self-incriminating, and humiliating details of what happened to them? Not only self-incriminating, but with details that could truly be corroborated to show that what is being alleged happened. So why do we also expect victims to present clean stories and clean recounts of what happened to them? Like I said before, it continues to go with the pattern of we're expecting these clean stories of I was here, this happened, and I went and told someone. When the truth is, nothing is black and white, especially when it comes to abuse stories, especially when it comes to abuse of minors who are traumatically traumatized by what is going on to them in that moment. So at what point does the disbelief, the willful, I should say, disbelief and the willful pushing off of these allegations become a denial? Why do we continue, or not we, but why do the men in power continue to push these stories off and deny them any sort of access to publication or fruition or documentation? Because again, it is a cover-up. They continue to do this. The Trump administration explicitly continues to cover up these crimes. But I wanted to go to a second part of this, and it includes Ghislaine Maxwell. So this says, I was also taken to another house that I later recognized as Frogmore Cottage when its refurbishment was in the news in 2018. There, I was restrained on a table and tortured with electrical shocks by Ghislaine Maxwell, and surrounded by watching men. I remember seeing Prince Andrew's face. Redacted. I tried to sneak out. Maxwell caught me and beat me with the bristle end of her broom. She also threatened me, saying that I deserved to die, and hit me in the face with the broom, breaking my nose. I was only taken to the hospital for a broken nose after a rugby match so that the injury could be blamed on that. How sick does this continue to get? Ugh. So when we talk about this allegations, Ghislaine Maxwell allegedly watched a minor being tortured through electrical shocks. Not only witnessed, but engaged complicitly in these electric shocks while a group of men watched this minor girl get shocked. Not only that, but she beat the minor for trying to escape from the abuse she was suffering and told her that she deserved to die. Not only that, she delayed hospital treatment so that way they could have a cover and a scapegoat for this minor's injuries by playing rugby. It's so perverse, so sick, so disgustingly and willfully planned by these criminals, abusers, and they continue to get away with it, and they're continuing to get away with it because Trump is in office. So when we talk about these horrific allegations that are noted in this FBI intake form, we also have to think, what was Maxwell convicted of? She was obviously convicted of crimes of this nature, of abuse of minor children. So you think that all of these allegations, the track record of abuse, is untrue? Because it's not. It's very true. So the patterns of coercion and control and sadistic enforcement continues within these trafficking regimes and records and networks. And you see it in the allegations of each one of these individuals who truly, most likely, had no contact with one another. So when does the track record become a true pattern of violence against children? And why do the maggots continue to try and say, oh, we're turning a blind eye to this? Please answer me that question. But what I want to know is why, after hearing and knowing, because the Department of Justice, Trump's administration, they are all aware of these allegations that have been corroborated. They are aware of why Ghislaine Maxwell is in jail, why she was convicted. Why would Trump even think of pardoning someone who hurt children, who intentionally trafficked and abused and sexually abused and tortured children, because it's not just the sexual abuse that is disgusting, that is atrocious. No, it continues on to the physical abuse of one's body and the torturing of minors. The fact it didn't stop at sexual abuse and escalated to so much more should be infuriating to anyone at the sexual abuse point, let alone past the sexual abuse point. So it's mind-boggling to me that society, that MAGA, that the right wing who protects this convicted felon in Trump continues to discount these allegations as unbelievable instead of this is possible. And I say this because these things sound unbelievable, which makes me think it's truly possible. Because who could come up with this just on their own? So I just want to talk about the Ghislaine Maxwell pardon here, because I just want to understand and want people to understand that the discussion of pardoning this disgusting, inhumane individual is alarming. And the fact that Trump could not sit in his office, in the Oval Office, and say, I would never think of pardoning this person, it should raise a red flag and alarm for you that this man has ulterior motives, because guess what? If he protects her, she will protect him. And it's all a huge cover-up. We know what she's been convicted for. We know there's no speculative wrongdoing. Absolutely not. We all know that allegations in the Epstein files make the idea of clemency morally fucking wrong. And yet, this man has not gone on public national news stations and said, I will condemn her, and I will never pardon such a disgusting, grotesque individual, because he knows what she did and he was complicit in it. So we're going to go ahead and move on here as well, because I wanted to talk about this issue here. So Julie K. Brown is a journalist. And let me make sure I have this up here. All right, I have this up here. Give me 1 second. Okay. So Julie K. Brown is a journalist, and she was investigating Donald Trump. Let me clarify here. She was investigating Jeffrey Epstein, which could also collude into Donald Trump. But Julie K. Brown was a journalist who played a critical role in exposing Epstein. The DOJ released her flight logs indicating surveillance of a private journalist. So this raises so many concerns, including our First Amendment and our Fourth Amendments that are in our U.S. Constitution, our civil liberties as human beings that exist on American soil to make sure that we are able to travel freely and have our own lives freely without unwarranted surveillance and investigation into us as private citizens. There was no warrant for Julie K. Brown to be surveilled, and there was no public justification for this private journalist to be surveilled for investigating Epstein. And you know what? I tried to look from the other side. I tried to look at it from Donald Trump's DOJ, because he was in office when she was surveilled. Who made the call for her to be surveilled? And I tried to think, well, what would be a national security threat? I honestly tried to play devil's advocate here. And I was like, well, maybe if Julie K. Brown was investigating Epstein and she found information that could threaten our national security, then yeah, then she would be a national security threat. But then I had to roll myself back a bit, and I was just like, but if she had contents that would then implicate Trump, it's not a national security threat. It's a personalized attack and surveillance on a private citizen. A journalist investigating and having documentation against anyone is not a national security threat. It's protected in our Constitution. So for Trump to call their DOJ, his DOJ at the time, to investigate a private journalist, it raises serious First Amendment and Fourth Amendment concerns. But again, this president, this regime, does not care about our Constitution. So the only apparent motive in monitoring someone is because they're uncovering dangerous truths. And that's what Brown was uncovering. So when we talk about the key points of this, it's the surveillance of journalists. It really shows that this administration has no care in the world for allowing our Constitution to thrive and live in our American soil, because they're willing to destroy and ignore our Constitution if it serves fit for them to protect the powerful elite and the PDFs in this government that are being covered up for and protected with this whole debacle of an Epstein case file drop. They continue to protect these evil scumbags. So when journalists are investigating powerful, life-changing, altering criminals and stories, and they are being monitored because of that, it signals literal protection of these criminals, of these people, of the abusers who abuse these victims. And it does not make Donald Trump look good. It does not make this Department of Justice look good. It does not prove or give a shadow of a doubt of proof that Donald Trump is innocent. Because if Donald Trump was innocent, he wouldn't send someone to surveil a private journalist at all. So why was this journalist who was investigating a sex trafficking ring being tracked? The only logical answer is because Donald Trump wanted close eyes and ears on this person who was getting close to earth-shattering truths about, most likely, himself. Also, who authorized this surveillance? Who authorized the surveillance of Julie K. Brown? That's what I want to know. Because it was authorized by the DOJ to surveil. And not only was it authorized to the DOJ to surveil, it was documented. The surveillance was documented with flight logs of Julie K. Brown that was then all released in the latest Epstein file dump. So not only do we have proof of this unconstitutional surveillance of a private journalist, but now we have solid proof that they're doing it unconstitutionally and illegally. And honestly, Julie K. Brown definitely has a suit. For sure. So you also have to think that if they are ignoring the Constitution for one journalist who was investigating Epstein, how many times have they ignored the Constitution, our First Amendment right to free speech, which we know they continuously try to tear apart, and how many times have they ignored the Fourth Amendment, which protects our rights from searches and seizures, and unreasonable searches and seizures, I should say, and typically requires probable cause and a warrant issued by a judge to be surveilled. They continue to break and ignore our Constitution. And these flight logs that were exposed in these DOJ files that were released with Epstein shows that they continue to ignore the Constitution and the rule of law in the United States. So when we come to the actual depiction and explanation of this, I need to know, why aren't citizens being protected? If the person in office right now is not protecting citizens, then who will? If the person in office right now is not abiding and following the law of the land, then guess what? He can run roughshod on anyone. So, in regards to it, it's just, for me, it's civil liberty and legal implications for for the sitting president, for the sitting president's administration, because journalists are supposed to be able to investigate without the fear of the government's retaliation or investigating or surveilling them without probable cause or a warrant. Okay? It's also a conflict of interest because the DOJ is surveilling someone, investigating cases it has jurisdiction over. So obviously that raises concerns for any journalist that the government could surveil them with no probable cause, thus infringing on not only the First Amendment of freedom of speech, but also infringing on the Fourth Amendment of the right to not be surveilled without probable cause. And also it sets a precedent risk, allowing unwarranted, not only unwarranted surveillance, but unwarranted surveillance that was not documented and not exposed until these documents were released because they probably didn't realize it in the moment. They didn't redact that information like they wanted to. It shows the cover-up that continues to happen in this Epstein debacle. So I wanted to talk about one more thing here tonight on this or this morning, because it's 5:35 a.m. I don't even know why I'm still out. I'm just doing. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about how the Department of Justice is actively covering up Trump's name. And this is clear examples of what the current Department of Justice is doing. So let's go. I have this pulled up, right? Perfect. It is pulled up. All right. Let me go ahead and zoom in on this for you guys. Boom. This is all zoomed in, right? This is all zoomed in. It is. Perfect. Okay. So this is reported by the New York Independent, and it gives clear evidence of a cover-up and what our current administration is trying to do regarding trying to protect Donald Trump and the criminals that are expelled and completely just in these documents. So this is reported by the New York Independent. It shows the DOJ redactions, obviously conflicts of interest, and the appearance of a cover-up. So, core concern here is that the New York Independent is exposing the true cover-up that is happening with the Department of Justice documents that are being released by the current administration, being Trump. The concern isn't just what is being redacted, it is also who has the authority over the redaction process. Because currently right now, it is the Trump administration, and Trump is implicated in the crimes that are being alleged in these documents. So key facts as reported in this document here is that the DOJ document released during the Trump administration contained redactions of Donald Trump's name that was already previously released during the Biden administration. So this shows evidence that our Department of Justice currently that is serving under Donald Trump is serving to protect and redact Donald Trump's name and information that implicates him in any way to criminal crimes, to the Epstein files in association with Jeffrey Epstein. And if you look at the document here, you can see the bottom half is what was released by the Biden administration. It shows Trump's name and it shows the redacted information that Trump's name was removed on the bottom half. But on the top half, that was released by the DOJ and in Trump's administration, it has redacted Trump's name each time. And when we look at the contents and the context of this information, Let's read it. Another friend was one of the many girls that had sexual relations with blank. She confided in me with her casual friendship with blank blank, Donald Trump, redacted, definitely seemed to have a thing for her. And she told me how he kept going on about like he liked her not going to say that word, liked flicking and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you can read it all. Complete abuse until they were painful and red and swollen. I also know she had with blank at Jeffrey's New York mansion on regular occasions it's just gross. And as you can see, Trump's name is redacted from the files that were released under Donald Trump. So this just raises concerns in general because redactions are not supposed to protect the abusers, the criminals who conducted and engaged in these actions to violate their victims. And this is perfect evidence that the DOJ is protecting, guess what? The abusers over the victims. They only have one priority, and that's to protect Donald Trump. So redactions are supposed to protect ongoing investigations, protect classified informations, and victims' identities. It should not shield politically powerful individuals like Trump from scrutiny and the public from understanding what these powerful individuals have done to hurt their victims. It should not alter historical records, which the DOJ currently is looking to do. Not only did they release a redacted version, but now they're releasing an altered redacted version because the original version was already released. And then also, it's reframing the facts of these allegations. Completely reframing the facts by redacting Trump's name. And I want to say this very blatant and upfront. There is a conflict of interest. Trump is implicated in these documents. When you search Trump's name, he shows up more than 600 times. You don't think that's a conflict of interest here? When a person who has allegations connected to serious crimes is implicated in or associated with these investigations, has access to these documents through the administrative agencies, that is called nothing but clear and utter conflict of interest. Not only does Trump sit in the presidency, but he has clear influence over the Department of Justice. He is also responsible for the disclosure of these documents. And yet, he gets to sit here with his Department of Justice, redact his name from anything that implicates him in crimes, and then release them to the public to preserve his good nature and good faith. It creates an inherent conflict of interest. Even if no crime yet has been proven, these allegations still deserve to be heard by the public, especially being that this is involving a high-profile case of Jeffrey Epstein's victims and who was in this circle of traffickers. So the core issue obviously isn't proof. It's truly the possibility that this man, Trump, who is implicated in these documents, has access to these documents. The danger is literally the potential for the alteration, the selective redaction, the destruction, and the narrative manipulation of these documents. It's literally law and ethics combined here, and it's a conflict of interest because the mere possibility of interference is enough to trigger safeguards, and Trump should not have had access to this presidency while this investigation was going on because he was implicated in these crimes, and he currently should not have access to the presidency because guess what? Now Jeffrey Epstein's dead, and I'm pretty sure he was not He was not, no, he was, yeah, off. So I want to understand here what the Justice Department's thought process was. Why would a document become more redacted over time instead of less? Because they're trying to protect Donald Trump. Also, who decides this redaction? And under what authority? The authority and the premise is to protect Donald Trump. And who decides these redactions? Donald Trump, because the DOJ, Pam Bondi, instructed her office to redact Trump's name from anything that makes him look complicit in these crimes. And I just want to know, why does someone who's implicated in these alleged sex trafficking and abuse cases have any proximity to the files? It's a blatant conflict of interest. And how can justice truly function? How can justice truly function if literally all that's happening is the protection of the self-appearance of Donald Trump? It's never about the victims. It never has been about the victims. It's always been about protecting Donald Trump. And if you protect Donald Trump, then guess what? You can protect everyone else who is involved in this sex trafficking ring and the abuse of minor boys and girls. So, I just want to end on this. Even if you set guilt aside here, the mere proximity that Donald Trump has to the injustice to set himself free of these allegations, of these incriminating crimes, should be cause for anyone to raise a red flag and say, let me step into Donald Trump's shoes as a morally depraved individual who was egotistically gross and has been convicted of 34 counts of felony, including rape. Let me put myself into his shoes. If I was that disgusting of a human being, I would use my power to stay out of jail. Right? So in a functioning democracy, Trump essentially should not be president, because this investigation, the magnitude of crimes, the magnitude of abuse that minors and boys and girls and women suffered should come prior and before a man looking to hold presidency who is incriminated and implicated in these allegations and crimes. And yet, you all voted for this man, damn well knowing that he was a part of this sex trafficking ring of minor boys, girls, and women. Anyway, guys, this is the end of the podcast. If you haven't already, you guys can go ahead and hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with brand new information and coverage and political commentary of the craziness and psychoness that continues to go down in our political landscape. You can follow me right here on YouTube and subscribe and hit that notification bell, as well as right up here you can follow all the other links for my podcast. And as you know, YouTube is my predominant platform. This is the platform where you will see the newest, best, and most up-to-date information regarding the politics that are going on in the world as we discuss, break down, and really excavate what is truly going on in America. What is truly going on with these cover-ups. Anyway, guys, have a good night or morning or day. I don't even know what time it is anymore because I'm just up all days and times of the day and night. Enjoy. Adios. Bye.